Hello DevOps people, I'm Jochen and I'm back with my infrastructure live stream. How you doing folks? Okay, so I'm going to start slowly and let's see where we are. Coffee. So I thought, okay, since I've not been working on open source stuff that you folks can see develop, I'm going to take at least a bit of time at the start of each live stream to let you catch up and get you in the loop. This will also help me to set clear goals, what to achieve during the next hour or so. Since last time I realized midstream that I didn't really know where to go, so I didn't really know what to do. And that's not only not very productive, it's also pretty boring for you. And so I apologize. I'll try to do better. That's one of the reasons why I've set up this GitHub repository, whose URL you see down at the bottom at the screen. I replaced my Twitter and email information with the URL, and be aware that that there is a zero in this URL. It's not a big O, it's a zero in DevOps. And so I've created this repository to basically have some kind of a forum or exchange with you, where I can create issues with an agenda, the one you can see on the screen right now, where I can check off what I actually did and achieved, and I can roll over things that didn't get finished to the next session. Also, this gives you the opportunity to create issues yourself. If you just want to give me some feedback, if you have questions, if you have suggestions for how to improve this live stream, how to make it more worthwhile for you, please be my guest and create an issue, and I'll do my best to accommodate you. I'm doing this live stream mainly for my own team at my company, but we decided to make it a public live stream. So I'd like you to benefit from the things I do here as well. And the better I can do this, the happier we all are. And so let me know if there's something I can improve. Simply create an issue as you would with any software, and we'll get into a conversation. Since I just mentioned that I'm doing this live stream mainly for my team, so I'm in the moment writing on a blog post that will describe how I got the idea to do this live stream and why actually I'm doing my work in the public like this. And yeah, as soon as it's finished and published, I'll mention it here on the live stream, and I'll probably create another issue on the repository. So if you'd like, go on GitHub and star the repository so that you get updates as soon as I post them. And it'll be another way for us to stay in touch. Okay, so what's going to happen today? First of all, I'll have to follow up on the Travis CI integration that took me much too much time last time, and I think the time before. It's resolved, it's working, and I'm going to show you how it goes. It's actually very simple. As soon as it works, as always. And then I'll give another stab at building the DNS cookbook that I've been trying to build over the recent 2 weeks, I think. Now I know what I'll have to do, and I'm pretty optimistic that I'll get it working today. So first of all, it's Travis CI integration, which is probably an interesting thing for everyone because Travis CI isn't tied to any particular programming language. So I can wholeheartedly recommend using it for software quality assurance, basically. And then I'll go into some chef coding, which will be specific for our system management software, Chef. And it'll probably use a bit of Ruby, but not too much, I guess. Mostly basic stuff. Okay, so let's replace my empty coffee cup with another glass of water, which will probably force me to go to the loo in the middle of the stream, but we'll see. Travis CI integration. So here we go. That's my Travis YAML file that now actually works. So what I did wrong last time was I didn't have the main credentials right. I had the provider right because that tells Travis to deploy the final artifact, the gem file, to our package cloud account, but I didn't get the username and the repository right. And I tried using my email address as the username, and then I used freistyle/rubygems as the repository, and that was simply wrong. You use your account name as the username here and the plain and simple repository name for the repository field, and provided that you have the right token, which the Travis command automatically writes into this file, so you can't do much wrong here, it'll work. So that was one thing. Oh yeah, and my bundle exec rake build up here creates a gem file for the current version. But first of all, it stores it under the package subdirectory, so I had to change the package glob field as well to pick the gem files out of this directory. And I had to make sure that Travis CI didn't clean the build directory between running rake build and the deploy phase. With skip cleanup true, we prevent Travis CI from deleting the gem files before they could be deployed. And that's it. Now we have a working CI integration. When I push a new version to the master branch, that is also tagged, then Travis CI will kick in and not only run the test and build commands, but it'll also deploy the new version to our RubyGems repository. How do we tag things? Well, that's easy as well. What I did was integrate the gem release gem. This gem extends the subcommands of the gem command that you always use in Ruby to install gems, and it'll give you new commands. And I'm using these commands to release new versions. In that case, with gem bump, patch or minor or major, I can bump up the version of our gem here. And that command will automatically change the version RB file. So I don't have to do this manually anymore. It'll go into this file, change the version number, and then I can use gem tag, which takes this version number, tags the current commit with this version number, and pushes this change automatically. So the workflow is gem bump, say patch if I just fix the bug, and then I go gem tag. It'll tag the commit that I've done before. It'll push the code and the tag, and since I've now pushed a tagged commit to the master branch, Travis CI will kick in automatically, run the tests, run the build. If both are successful, it'll run the deploy phase and push a new gem file version to our Ruby gems repository on Package Cloud. And whenever someone from our team runs gem install FB tool, they'll get the most current version. So that's finally done, and I can go and close this. Of course, as always, if you have any questions to the things I tell you, to the things I explain, if there is something that you'd like to know, hit me up in the chat. I'll see it, and I'll do my best to make things a bit clearer. Now, let's leave this tmux session, and well, we can check this off. Now, let's go to our cookbook stuff. So let's recap what I'm actually going to do. Maybe I simply create a new text file. Here we go. Too many text files. So, what we actually need is, or what our actual goal is, automate DNS zone data for our hosting platform. My company runs a managed web hosting platform named FrySteelBox. And of course, we are spinning up new servers all the time. We already run hundreds of servers in our infrastructure, and all these servers need DNS entries so that we can address them. And this is only partially automated, and that needs to improve, and I'll get into the improvements right away. So, what do we have at the moment? Our current DNS servers are fed from JSON files that we edit manually. We upload these JSON files, and these JSON files contain all the DNS entries for the many domains we run. We upload them to our configuration management software, Chef. And Chef then takes all this information and writes out zone files for the DNS server we are running at the moment, which is DJB DNS. And that's almost it. So basically we still maintain our zone files manually, just not in the DJB DNS format. but in JSON format, and our system configuration management software takes this JSON information, transforms it into DJB DNS configuration files, and then runs these. What we also automated is that we can set a flag for specific domains that is named auto-populate, which means if this flag is set to true, Chef will go take the domain name of the zone that has this flag set and check if we have any servers that belong to this domain. All our servers are registered with Chef. That's pretty obvious, because otherwise system configuration management wouldn't make much sense. And so let's say we have the domain freistilbox.net, and if in the JSON zone information for this domain we set the auto-populate flag to true, Chef will go and see if there are any servers that end with the domain freistilbox.net, and if that's the case, they'll get A records created automatically. And that's the current status quo. What doesn't get auto-generated, for example, is SPF records, which we need for email delivery. The web applications we host oftentimes send email. It could be admin email just to notify the webmasters of new user accounts or stuff like that. And of course, we also have customers who email the users of their websites with new passwords and welcome emails and stuff, newsletters, all that jazz. And in order for these emails to be accepted and not end up in spam filters, we need to authorize these servers to send email for our customer's domain. So that's the thing I'm actually going to code today. So we need to authorize application servers to send email for a customer's domain. And this happens in the way that we have the customer's domain. Let's take example.com. And we'll add an SPF record. Something like this, underscore SPF example.com. And in this SPF record, that's basically just a text DNS record with a string of information. It needs to list the servers running this customer's web applications. Since the number of servers can be quite high if a customer has a highly scalable setup with us, we take a different approach. We simply say, okay, we'll create an SPF record for the customer's cluster, which is something like C123 in our domain. And then we or the customer themselves can say something like include the SPF record below. And that adds another degree of freedom, because the customer doesn't even have to run their DNS with us. We'll simply tell them, well, just include SPF C123 in your SPF record, wherever that record is stored and maintained, and then you're good. And all we have to do ourselves is to maintain this particular SPF record. And that's where I got confused last time. I thought, okay, how do I actually get all the domains a customer has with us, and how do I maintain this? We can still do this part here manually, or even leave it to the customer if they have their DNS elsewhere. But the main thing that we need to do and to automate is creating these cluster-specific SPF records, and they are all below the freistilbox.net domain, which makes things much easier. And so let's get to it and see how we build this. Come on. So I already have the stubs of this particular recipe in here. This chef cookbook uses our new NSDX cookbook. NSDX takes care of setting up the NSD DNS server. So we are switching DNS servers from DJB DNS to NSD. And that cookbook does all the basic stuff like install the package, start the DNS service, write the zone files and stuff like that. And it also provides chef resources to create DNS records and the DNS zones that encapsulate these DNS records. And that's the resource you see here below in line 10. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'll include a recipe from the NSDX cookbook that takes care of all the basic setup. Then I do a search for all servers that use the freistilbox : box recipe. That's our chef recipe that sets up all the application servers. And this search gives me back a list of nodes. Chef nodes are basically servers. And that's the list of application servers we are running. So this list will be continuously growing, hopefully. And then we go through each list item. And now what we're doing at the moment isn't quite right, but I'll explain it anyway. We'll get the cluster ID of this application server, which is stored in the node attribute freistilbox cluster, and create an SPF record for this particular node and cluster. So we create a DNS entry _SPF dot and then the cluster ID C123. For the zone freistilbox.net, the DNS record type is SPF and the policy is just this string. And that's the part we'll have to change. But let's leave it at that for a minute. And in the end, as soon as we have created all the NSDX records, we'll simply tell chef to write the zone file for frysteelbox.net. So if you compare what I've coded here with the goal that I actually have, you'll realize, okay, I'll take the nodes of a cluster. Say we have 3 nodes belonging to C123. In that case, this recipe will create 3 DNS records, all with the same hostname, SPF C123 frysteelbox.net, and a string that doesn't even identify the server. So we have basically 2 mistakes here. Instead of 1 DNS entry, we create 3, and they don't even have the information we need. Instead, we need to write a single SPF record that then contains all the 3 or 5 or 1 nodes belonging to this cluster. You following me this far? Yeah? If not, come up in the chat. So, instead of creating NSDX records right in this loop, we'll use this loop to collect data, and only when we have processed all the nodes, we'll then process the data we collected. So this record stuff needs to be somewhere below this loop. And I'm going to use a simple hash to collect the IP addresses of each cluster's servers. So I'll create an array variable, which we'll call SPF records. And no, it won't be an array. We'll use a hash. As the hash key, I'll use the cluster ID, and the hash value will be an array of IP addresses. So we have the cluster ID. So what we'll do is, if SPF records cluster, if we already have an entry for this, so SPF records key cluster, the value will already be an array, so we can do SPF records cluster and simply add the box's IP address to the already existing array of IP addresses. However, if this is the first time we see this cluster, we'll do SPF records cluster equals an array, a single element array with the box's IP address. So if we encounter this cluster for the first time, we'll create an array that has a single element, the IP address of the box, and all subsequent boxes will simply be added to this array. And now that we've processed all the nodes, we can go through the list of SPF records. And since it's a hash, we iterate in pairs of cluster and an address list. And now we can create a single DNS record for this cluster. So we'll use SPF dot and cluster ID, friesdebox.net SPF file, and then now how does this have to look? I think it's something like A and then IP address and then another A and another IP address, but just to be sure, let's look this up. SPF record format. Something like IPv4. Oh, it's not A, it's IPv4 and then the IP address. Okay. So instead of a list of IP addresses, we need a list of these strings. That's easy because we can simply go and say, what's the right word for this? Mechanism. Yeah, apparently it's called mechanism, so we'll use that. Mechanism is simply the address list transformed in the sense that we transform it into a string that has the format IPv4 colon and then the address. And then in the end I'll simply insert the mechanism after the SPF identifier and the all keyword, which basically means this SPF record authorizes all these IP addresses to send email for this domain. And the tilde all says everything else is disallowed. And that's what we need to do here. Of course, we are not going to send email for this particular domain ever, but this allows the customer to do this include that actually puts this to use for another domain. And in the end we still write the DNS zone file, and that's it. Well, at least it looks sensible, but let's run a test run for this chef recipe and let's see what happens. Okay. It did something, but I had a small glimpse and I saw that it doesn't do what I wanted it to do. Even though I have a single node dummy information for the cluster C1, in this case I included mechanism, which still is an array, so it included it with the square brackets and the quote signs and everything, which is obviously not what we want. We need to take this list of IP addresses and join it into a single string separated by spaces. That's what I find great about Ruby. You can do these almost functional programming things where you take a list of stuff, then you apply the map operator, which transforms it into a different list of strings, and then you apply the join operator, which then creates a single string out of this array, and it has all the addresses separated by spaces. Let's see how this works out. If you're confused why all these log entries are duplicated, that's I guess a bug in the test framework, test kitchen here. I have to set the log level to info so I get a bit of debug output, and I think Chef then does each log entry another time because it runs in a terminal. So the thought behind it, I think, is okay, I'm writing this into a log file, but I also run in a terminal, so I'll output it into a terminal as well. And since it's not actually, or since Test Kitchen then takes the log output for the log file and displays it on the terminal too, everything is duplicated. But it's not too bad. We can live with that. Okay, now it's a bit better, but our test node here doesn't seem to have an IP address, and that's why we get IPv4 : and then nothing at all. So let's take a look at our test data. And yes, it's missing the IP address node attribute, which is an automatic attribute that is automatically, as the name says, created by Chef or by its OHI tool. OHI simply investigates the system and creates thousands of node attributes with what it finds about available CPUs, mounted file systems, and network interfaces. So let's give it an IP address. And run another converge. And this is looking better now. Let's scroll up a bit. Now we have an SPF record that actually contains the IP address. And of course, I'd like to see it working with a list of nodes as well. So let's create another and then let's create a third node that belongs to a different cluster. And let's run another chef client run. Interesting. That looked a bit strange. Let's see. Oh no, it's okay. It replaced the SPF record for C1 with an SPF record that has 2 IP addresses now, and it created another one for C2 which only has the 3rd node in it. Well, I think that's nice. I think that's exactly what we need. Okie dokie. Basically, that's the functionality we need. But development always should include tests, and so I'm going to write an integration test that checks what the recipe does at the moment, which is quite easy to do after the fact, because we'll just have to check automatically what I did right now, which is basically take a look at the DNS entries and make sure they match what we expect. And I think I'll simply copy a file, the test that I'm using in the NSDX. Oh! Thanks for following, Roosh. Okay. I just got afraid that my chat window isn't working again, and that you folks are heavily writing stuff in the chat and I don't see it. But I just got the notification, and so the chat is working. You're just terribly silent, but don't worry. I don't mind. So NSDX test integration. Thanks for the test message, Roosh. Yeah, that takes a bit of pressure off me. So chat is working fine. Default zone spec. I think that's it, isn't it? And I'll just execute a few host commandos to see if we actually get what we want. And I think I have an SPF check in there. Yeah. So I'll simply copy this part. I'll close this right away and create a new test file. Test integration. I don't have a default directory, so I don't have to create that. Test integration default, and then I can create a test integration default. Well, default spec.rb, and then we'll do a check for the text record that gets created for this SPF stuff, and it'll be for c1.frysteelbox.net, and it should match, well, let's make it a bit less specific. Simply, it should match the IP address of the first node, and it should also match the IP address of the second node. And if we run the same command for C2, it should have the third node in there. So we simply launch our test container or test VM and have Chef install everything just like it did before, and then we'll run this test, which will execute these two host commandos against the DNS server running on localhost. And the first SPF record should include node 1 and 2, and the second SPF record should include node 3. So, just to be sure, let's run another converge, and then I'll run verify, which will execute the test. And both commands are green. But I have only one match up there for 2, 3, 4, 5. Where's the 1, 2, 3, 4? Did I delete this accidentally? No. Huh. Can I only run a single match, a single assertion per it? That could be the case. So let's try and make these two statements. Just duplicate this. Oh, we have an end too much. That's... Oh, no, it's not too much. Yeah, okay. And in this case, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we have 3 assertions here. And... we can shorten this a bit. So we have 3 assertions up there and 2 assertions down here, which means we should have 5 successful tests. Yup, we do. That went much better than last time. It's amazing what you can achieve if you have a clear goal. Alright. So, I guess I should commit this. Let's see. Yeah, so I have the... Let's take a closer look what I changed here. Okay, I added the NSDX master recipe, which will actually create a DNS or install the DNS server itself. Previously I only had my own recipe in the test, but this recipe won't install a DNS server, so I added NSDX master to the run list. And only because of this I was able to execute these host commands successfully. Okay, so we'll add that. Oh. Let's add the token YAML file. Zone setup. Then we have 2 recipes. What changed here? Oh yeah, and I'm also running the data bag recipe from the NSDX cookbook, which will make sure that on top of the very specific SPF stuff I did in my recipe, the things that I described at the beginning get run as well. So it'll take our JSON files with the zone information in these in this data bag DNS and add that as well. So that's that. Yeah, I'm going to commit this as a separate commit, and I'll rebase this in the end so that it all makes sense. But I'd like to have nice building blocks. So also add zone information from data bag. Then I have my recipe here, which basically means, okay, actually create the right SPF records. And in the end, okie dokie. So we should be clean, and let's go and push this. Not sure if it'll work or if it needs a force push. We'll see in a second. Yeah, it needs a force push. But first let me let me install the SSH agent so I don't have to enter my password again and again. So git push force. Okay. And now let's do a git rebase origin master, which I've aliased as git rebase upstream. And here are our commits. So we have these 2 commits here that actually concern the NSDX cookbook. I'll put them at the start. And I leave them as separate commits. And then I'll have to revert this commit, and I guess I'll make all the subsequent commits fix-ups, because they are basically the first version of our new DNS cookbook here. And let's just describe this in all broad strokes. This cookbook is the new NSDX cookbook to set up DNS entries for Box on top of the data bag information, or on top of the zone information in the DNS data bag. It also adds SPF records for, adds an SPF record for each Box cluster. This SPF record can then be included in the SPF records of customer domains. Okay. Another force push. Now, before we do the pull request, let's make sure that everything is working. So I'll run a kitchen test, which will destroy my test infrastructure, rebuild it from scratch, run the chef converge, run the tests, and if everything is successful, it'll tear down the test infrastructure again, which hopefully is what is going to happen. Here's the chef run. Here it creates the zone file. I just had an idea that I also should make sure the data bag stuff still works. The SPF records actually work, that's fine. But I'll add some test data in form of JSON, of a JSON file or two as well, to make sure that the old part of our DNS setup still is going to work. It means to duplicate a bit of the stuff that's already implemented and tested in the NSDX cookbook, but since this cookbook here will be the primary cookbook that sets up DNS and it only uses NSDX, I still want to have tests in there, because I might be using NSDX incorrectly. I might have an order problem, so I'm calling the cookbook where it shouldn't be called or something like that. And while the NSDX cookbook might be working perfectly fine, if I'm using it wrong in my cookbook here, the end result might still be not correct, and I'll have to test that. So what I'm going to do is create a test integration data bags directory. I'll copy the test file over from the NSDX cookbook. I think it's test cookbooks, isn't it? Yeah, test cookbooks, NSDX test. No, that's not it. NSDX test integration data bags DNS. Oh, I'll need the DNS subdirectory. Hey Marcus, how you doing? Happy to have you on the stream. Did you just arrive? Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, another subdirectory data bags. The data bag name is DNS, so I'll use that. And test integration data bags DNS, and I'll actually name this price_ned_JSON, because that's what we're dealing with in this case. And so instead of example_com, I use first_net, and then oh, there's not much I need to replace, so I'll do that manually. first_net. We can still use DNS records from example.com. We have www as the web server, mail server, maybe even a CNAME, MX records. We don't need... Well, we might want to have some kind of SPF record as well, and this shouldn't confuse things. So let's say we'll simply whitelist all servers that have a f7it.net domain, and we don't need a text record, I guess. Don't have to go that far. So with that, I should get quite a bit more DNS entries, namely all these that are here. So let's run another converge and see if that actually is the case. Sorry. Converge. How are we for time? Yep, good. Yep. That's looking pretty good. But let's take a closer look. Yeah, I have the auto-generated SPF entries that I had previously, and on top of that I get all the stuff that was manually entered into the JSON file. Pretty nice. Let's see if it survives verify as well. Well, it should. But now we'll have to run a few more tests. So oops. At least we should have something like, if I'm trying to get www, what should I get? It's an A record. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's check the C name record. Web should match www. We could check mail and stuff as well, but I don't think that makes too much sense. But I'd like to check the SPF record because that has some potential to conflict with the auto-generated SPF records. So we have one space too many here, and I'm OCD enough that I don't like this. So SPF Icebox.net should match f7it.net. Oh, didn't. Why didn't it? Oh, because I'm not checking the SPF record. It's supposed to be a text record. Success. Sweet, sweet success. Okay, that's that. So I'll add this commit as well. Add integration test for data bag content. And I think that's what I wanted to accomplish today. So I'll give this a check. And I can also go ahead and create a pull request for my team. New box DNS cookbook, and let's simply copy my commit message from down here. I don't think. Oh yeah, we have a reference resolves. Issue number 173, create DNS cookbook. Good stuff that I have this release checklist in here, because I'm not sure if that's already the case. So let's do a bit of post-production here. Changes listed in changelog.md. Each of our cookbooks has a changelog file where things should be described, so let's take a look. Oh yeah, it has an entry for head, which will be the next release, and it just says initial release, so yeah, that's okay. Let's maybe add based on the MSDX cookbook. Okay. Documentation updated in README. I don't think the README is very extensive. So we'll simply insert that stuff here as well. What? Not supposed to be recording. Shouldn't indent, but anyway. Maybe not reference it as refer to it as a new cookbook because it won't stay new forever. That's that. It could use a bit more documentation, I admit that, but I'm happy with that at the moment. Integration tests run successfully, that's correct. But the Ruby and Chef style tests, how about these? We'll see. Rake test Ruby style, which will run Rubocop with our own set of rules. And it doesn't know how to do that because I guess we have a rake file in here which shouldn't exist because we have a rake file for our whole cookbooks repository. So I'll remove the rake file. Well, let's take a look at the rake file first. I don't want to lose anything, but I won't. Git rm rake file. So it'll take the rake file in the parent directories, which should make rake test Ruby style work. Ooh, far too many warnings. Spec helper shouldn't exist in the first place. I don't need the whole spec directory is unnecessary at the moment because I'm not running any unit tests. Let's get rid of these. As soon as we add unit tests, we'll probably simply copy the scaffolding from our template cookbook anyway, so having these old files lie around doesn't make any sense. Spec. Okay. That'll resolve quite a few of these offenses. Yeah, it's 10 offenses less. Then, what do we have here? In my recipe for Frostbox.net, I have a few things I should address, and so let's go into the recipe. I can see where I copied this, and I should have double quotes because we prefer double quotes in our style guide. The same with these strings. In this case, the single quotes are appropriate because they are embedded in a string that's again delimited by double quotes. And then it had a problem with spaces in this case here, so we can, whoops, no, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to say, okay, replace this with that, no spaces in these square brackets. Why does it always want to overwrite this file? Of course it should overwrite the file. 22 down to 18, and we should have a space before the map block here, which makes sense. And then we have the metadata file, which is copied or is probably already pretty old. And yeah, lots of single quotes. Okay. 17 down to 10. Okay. We have a guard file in here. Oh, that's old. And we can get rid of that as well. So 10 down to none. Perfect. So oops. Okay. It looks like the internet connection went down for a second here. Let's commit these as style cleanup. Move unnecessary files. That's that. And now chef style, which will run the food critic tool. Okay, here we go. We don't have an issues URL and source URL and chef version. Okay. And not a platform that is supported in metadata RB. Okay, that's easy to fix. The metadata file basically has all the metadata about this cookbook, so things like who's maintaining this cookbook and which version does it have and stuff. And we should also have it mentioned that this cookbook supports Ubuntu, and it should have an issues URL and a source URL, which makes sense. So source URL is our cookbooks repository, and then source files toolbox DNS. Issues URL is the issues URL of our repository. License, well, doesn't matter much because we won't publish this cookbook. It doesn't make sense. It's only of use for us. But I think it should have Apache 2.0 as a license string. If that doesn't work, I'll have to look it up. Ensure chef version and standardized license. Ensure cookbook shared and an OSI approved open source license. So let's find out. What I'll have to do to insert here. let's see. I just want to insert any license that will work. Yeah, here we have the identifier on let's see, is there an all rights reserved or something? Reserved? Nope, there is not. Let's see, Apache license. Apache, oh, I was almost right. It's basically just a capital A. And that's the license thing resolved, and now we only have to say which chef version we support, and I guess we can safely say everything that's or higher. Ah, fine. Okay. Here we go, Ruby and chef style tests run successfully as well. And now let's add our ops team as reviewers for this pull request. And label it with cookbook / Steelbox DNS. That has to become a new label. Doesn't exist yet. I'll have to add the proper color. And since we have a few fixes for the NSDX cookbook in here as well, I'll add another tag for, or another label for this cookbook. Okay. And I think I'm done. Let's just fix the label color. Huh? Strange. So let's see, well, let's simply copy the color of another. So we have that salmon color here. Oh, I could have just picked this one. And that's fine. So pull request is created. And if we run rake test, which should run Rubocop, Food Critic, and the integration tests, everything should run smoothly. Yeah, Marcus, NSDX does not depend on Chef 13 anymore. Oops, we have a problem here. My chef changes created another issue with Rubocop. Line is too long. It doesn't make any sense to split it up here. So I'll probably add an exception to the to our Rubocop settings. That doesn't make any sense. So let's yeah, things change fast. The thing is, the Chef 13 issues were caused by a special construct I used in the resources, in these custom resources that NSDX uses, and I was able to get rid of these constructs. I simply didn't need them anymore, and with them gone, it should also work with Chef 12. So, where is the line length stuff? Don't we have any? Here we go. And I should simply be able to say exclude metadata RB. Isn't that the right syntax? I think it is. Let's see. We'll quickly see if this works. Nope, still not doing it. I might have to add these double asterisks in order to apply subdirectories as well. So I'll do a something like this. Here we go. Hey Kiss of Fate, how you doing? What's your opinion on mean versus RNG programming? I have no clue what you're talking about. Mean versus RNG. I only know the RNG acronym as random number generator. But let's see. Mean RNG. Huh. Can you elaborate a bit what you mean? Or can you give me a pointer? Mean programming. Oh! I probably should know that. Okay. MongoDB, Express.js, Angular, Node.js versus React Next.js, GraphQL. Okay, that's completely outside of my area of expertise. I'm not an application developer per se. I'm more of a sysadmin cum developer. So what I do is infrastructure programming, basically infrastructure automation, not web front-end programming or application development. But let me see. Nope, nope. Can't tell you anything. I know what all these things are, because since we are a web hosting company, that's the things that our customers deal with. And so I have a bit of a context, but I have no experience whatsoever. I've never touched any of the JavaScript frameworks, and I'm a bit more familiar with GraphQL, what it does, and MongoDB is the thing I'm most familiar with. However, we run MongoDB only in a very limited way, and so no input from me there. See, I could have finished this stream with a success and everything, but I had to run the tests again. And now I'll have to look at it and see why this is breaking again. And I don't know what's happening here. This has been working all the time. Oh yeah, I see what I did there. I changed the quote signs, and that changed the meaning of these backticks. And now the search is broken. And yeah, if I'd like to prefer double quotes, I probably should include double backticks here. Oh dear. Okay, that's on me and me alone. Let's just close up everything I won't need anymore. And let's go up there and make these double backticks. Oh dear, dear. Let's see if it does converge now. I taught myself Java programming when I was 12. I am 19 now, and now I'm branching out into web development. Good for you. That's certainly a good idea, because web development is growing and growing. Trying to find a job in the industry. I went away of college for computer science, but not had to drop because of financial reasons. So I only have my IC3. Don't worry about that. I'd say most of the people I work with at my company and beyond don't have a university degree, and you don't need the computer science background, at least not a graduate background, in order to be a great software developer or a software engineer. Okay, this looks good, so let's try and run another rake test before I commit this. And if you learned Java programming when you were 12 and 7 years and I don't know, 7 years older, I don't think you should have any problems. If you got Java back then, you're probably much better now, and I'm not worried about you. Ah, now it's food critic again. Invalid search syntax. Oh, I hate you. I wanted to end at 5 and now we are over time and I'm still fixing bugs. That should not be there. Crap. Okay, FriesBox.net, 3 invalid search syntax. Well, Food Critic might be onto something here. It's FC010. Let's see. Maybe I'm using search wrong. Food Critic FC101. 010. Where do I find what I need? FC010. Invalid search syntax. Don't do this. Search something, do matching node. Do this instead. Search something, do. So it's basically the search syntax, the Solar syntax here. This example matches the rule because search meta characters, in this case the square brackets, have not been properly escaped. Okay. Yeah, Marcus is right, it's the double backslashes now, but a bit confused, to be honest. You know what? Let's try and use... Oh. That should be exactly the same string. Single quotes and single backslashes, and double quotes and double backslashes. One way Robocop will complain, the other way Food Critic will complain. It's catch-22 here. Oh, I hate it when that happens. So let's see. I can try another trick, and so let's do this and make it a quoted string. Okay, should use round parentheses. Okay. Ryan, thanks for the follow. Welcome to the stream. How's it going? You just slipped in right before the end of the stream. And I think I made it work. Robocop is okay. Food Critic is okay. I hope my integration tests will still work. If that's the case, I can commit and finally take a bio break. Yeah, I'll see you next time. I'll be streaming every Tuesday and Thursday at 3:30 p.m. UK or Ireland time. I'd be happy to have you again. Are you folks enjoying what I'm doing here, or is it just complete gibberish for you? Integration tests work. That's brilliant. So, break test is successful. I can check in at least this part. Please, Robocop and Food Critic. Another git push. Pull request already exists. Thanks for the follow, Lams Hansen. I hope I'm pronouncing it correct. I mean, I'm learning, so it's good for me. I like learning all sides of development. Yeah, certainly. That's exactly what I'm aiming at. I guess most of the people coming here, except of my own team, are software developers and not system engineers. So the things I'm doing here might be a bit unfamiliar, but it's still software development. You see, we do Ruby as well. We do testing and have testing frameworks. We work with version control, all that stuff. That's basically what DevOps is about, to marry all the good things that are in software engineering and system engineering. And I'm enjoying it a lot, and I hope you do too. So let's see, the only thing left is my Robocop file, but I'll commit that separately because it doesn't relate in any way to my DNS cookbook here, except that it is applied to it. So we're good. I'm 11 minutes over my time, but I have achieved what I wanted to do. We have a new cookbook that will swiftly run in production. And let's end on this note. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for engaging in the chat. Thanks for lurking in the background. That's perfectly fine as well. I'll be back next week, Tuesday afternoon. And if you have any questions, you'll find my GitHub repository for this stream mentioned below on your screen. If you have any questions, feel free to comment on the issue I've created for this session, or if you'd like to suggest something, simply open up another issue. Feel free to do whatever you find suitable. And until next time, take care and thanks.